Alright, so now we are going to do the second part. These are things that are going to be on the multiple choice. The multiple choice has a lot of property stuff. It has some I's from before. It has a factoring. And it also has something called completing the square, which is really easy. It's a less than 5 minute lesson. So that's why we really didn't do a full scale lesson on completing the square. Alright, so the first thing that we have here is x squared plus 5x minus 6. We need to find the vertex. So the easiest thing to do to find the vertex is what we did for the last questions. So you would do x equals negative b over 2a. And that gives you negative 2.5. Now you would take your 2.5 and replace it into your original equation. And that gives you negative 2.25. So that makes the vertex a negative 2.5 and negative 2.25. You can also put it into your calculator. So we have x squared plus 5x minus 6 and then you can just press zoom 6 and it'll give you the graph. Now to find the vertex, what you can do here is, on my graph, I don't know if you can see it, but you can't see the bottom. So you will just change your window. Since we pressed zoom 6 and got a regular window, we'll change our y min, to negative 20 so we can get it lower. So this is different than the word problems, very different. So now it's lower, I can see where my minimum is. Minimum in the calculator is the same as finding the vertex. So we go left of the minimum, right of the minimum, enter, enter, and you see that I was a little off. Woo! See? It's not negative 2.25, it's negative 12.25. So it's negative 2.5 because you can round because of all these 9s, and negative 12.25. So these two numbers would go here for the vertex. Now I need to know what the intercepts are so I can graph it. So to do the intercepts, you just do quadratic formula again. And you will do this on Monday, so you don't have to worry about remembering all of this for tomorrow. This is for Monday. So we have b squared minus 4ac, which winds up being 49. The square root of 49 is 7, so we have negative 5 plus 7 over 2, and negative 5 minus 7 over 2. And this gives us negative 1. And this gives us negative 6. Alright, so where it says x-intercept here, you can put x equals negative 1 and x equals negative 6. Alright, oh, wait, not negative 1, but, sorry, positive 1. So now I can graph all of the things that I need for this graph. So I have 1, negative 6, and then negative 2.5, which is right between negative 2 and 3, and then negative 12. Again, it's off the graph. So we're going to connect our dots. Now you don't have to worry about finding the solution. That was only for inequalities, but you will have to know how to get all of these in the multiple choice. Alright, first thing is domain and range. Domain is how far to the right and how far to the left. As you can see, the arrow tells us we're going to the right forever, that's infinity, and we're going to the left forever, that's negative infinity. So your domain is going to be negative infinity to positive infinity. Your range is how low does it go to how high does it go. So your range is what's the lowest point all the way to what's the highest point. And in that case, our lowest point is negative 12.25. That winds up being our lowest point. And then our highest point goes all the way up to infinity. Make sure you put a bracket at 12.25. It is continuous because it doesn't ever break up. The y-intercept is where does it cross the y-axis. So in your calculator, you can go to second graph and look for where x equals 0. That's the y-intercept. So you'll see that the y-intercept is at y equals negative 6. It's also the last number. Alright, end behavior. We always start the end behavior like this. As x arrow negative infinity and as x arrow infinity. And then we finish it off with f of x arrow. The arrow means as I go to negative infinity, as I go to the left, where is the graph going? Well, it looks like the graph's going to infinity, so the whole entire answer would be infinity. As I go to the right, which way is the graph going? Looks like it's also going to infinity, so that answer will be infinity. If both points are up, both answers will be infinity for the left and right. If both of them point down, both of your answers will be negative infinity for left and right. Alright, the minimum value is the first number of the vertex. That's the minimum. So the minimum value for here will be negative 12.25. The maximum value is the second number of the vertex. If you notice, the second number is infinity, so we have no maximum. Alright, increasing and decreasing, which is your favorite thing to do. What I'm going to do is go to my axis of symmetry. And my axis of symmetry I found out was at negative 0.25. 2.5, sorry. So I go negative 2.5, I draw a line straight through the middle. Okay, so that line through the middle is called the axis of symmetry. So that answer that I get here is axis of symmetry. Now, two things occur. Something happens on the left-hand side of the axis of symmetry, and something happens on the right-hand side of my axis of symmetry. So on the left-hand side, it looks like if I follow along from axis of symmetry on, and I'm going to the left, it's going towards negative infinity. Now, as I go to the left, the x values are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, because the x values started here at negative 2.5, and now we're at negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, negative 6, so the numbers are getting smaller on the left. So the numbers on the left-hand side are getting smaller to negative infinity. That means that this side, the answer is negative infinity to 2.5, negative. Now on this side, the numbers look like they're getting bigger. We're at negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1. So the numbers are getting bigger, and they keep getting bigger to infinity. So that means on this side, it goes from negative 2.5 to infinity. So now that we split it up, we got to figure out which side is the increasing side and which one is the decreasing. Well, if I erased this arrow, oh, it looks like I'm coming down the hill. So this is the decreasing interval. And then once I go to the other side, it looks like I'm going up the hill. That means that this is my increasing interval. So the increasing interval will be negative 2.5 to infinity. And the decreasing interval will be negative infinity to negative 2.5. All you're doing for this part is splitting up the domain using the axis of symmetry. So these two have to have x values. If you use y values, you will get it wrong. So you have to use this value here. I know there's a lot of colors and stuff going on, so I hope that you followed along while I did that. Alright. Next one, we're going to do the same thing. A is negative 3, B is negative 5, C is negative 2. So x equals negative b, which is 5, plus or minus the square root, b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. This will give us our intercepts, x-intercepts. So inside the square root is just 1. So this is a perfect square, so that's just equal to 1. So I have 5 plus 1 over negative 6 and 5 minus 1 over negative 6. That's going to be equal to negative 1. And this is going to be equal to negative 2/3. Which is negative 0.667. Alright, so now I plot them, and it's going to be very small to plot, because negative 1 and negative 0.67 are very, very close to each other. Alright, just give me a moment. I'm putting it into my calculator. And now my calculator wants to act up, so I'll use this one. Okay, so you see it's going to be really small to plot it. Really close. Alright, so now I'm going to find the vertex. So the vertex will be negative b, which is 5, over 2a. So it's 5 over negative 6, which as a decimal is negative 0.833. Now we're going to replace that into the original, but replace it with 5 over negative 6 because we rounded that. And you get negative 0.083. So that's going to be a really small vertex. So that really is like right there in the middle. Oh, wait, this is not negative. Sorry. Alright, so that's really small, like right there. So now I just connect my dots. Super small graph. Alright, the y-intercept is always going to be the last number. So that's y equals negative 2. I hope I put y equals on the other page. I did. Okay. Alright, the domain is the same. It's going all the way to the left and all the way to the right. So because of that, that's infinity and negative infinity. Since this graph is upside down, that means it goes all the way down to negative infinity and then stops up here. And up here is the second number of my vertex. So this you will use for the range. So it goes from negative infinity and stops there with the bracket. And yes, it's continuous. Alright, the end behavior, you always start it the same way as x arrow negative infinity as x arrow positive. This is called left end behavior. This is called right end behavior. Now, since both of the arrows are pointing down to negative infinity, when I go to the left, it goes down. When I go to the right, it also goes down. So these two answers are going to be negative infinity. So that's my left end behavior, that's my right. Alright, the minimum value is always the first number of my vertex. I don't have a minimum, so I say none. The maximum value is always the second number of my vertex. So that is 0.083. Okay, decreasing and increasing interval again. So first thing I'm going to do is draw a line straight through the middle. And then I have stuff going on the left-hand side. And then on the right-hand side of that line. That line is basically this number. So that's your axis of symmetry. It goes here. So that answer is 0.833 negative. Alright, so on the left-hand side of that number are these numbers. And it starts here at negative infinity and goes all the way to my axis of symmetry. So that's from negative infinity to negative 0.833. Now on the right side of this, it starts here and then ends up at negative infinity. So that's negative 0.833 to infinity. Now one of them is my increasing and one of them is my decreasing. If I erase these arrows, this graph is going up. So this is my increasing interval. And if I erase these arrows, the arrow's coming down, so that's decreasing. So this is my decreasing interval. Notice how you see all these numbers the same. These numbers should all be the same. Alright, so I know it's a lot of colors, a lot of pictures, but each piece means something important. So make sure you know how to find out each piece. Alright, you had some I questions at the bottom as review, so let's look at the first one. If A is 3 plus 4I and B is 6 minus I, find A plus B. You might see this again, so we're just reviewing. 3 plus 4I plus 6 minus I means that you're going to combine like terms. So 3 plus 6 is 9. 4 plus negative 1 is 3. So there is your final answer. Easy enough. Alright, the next one says B minus A, so that's 6 minus I minus 3 plus 4I. So again, you're going to combine like terms. 6 minus 3 is 3, and negative 1 minus 4 is negative 5. So the final answer to this is 3 minus 5I. So here we had 4 plus negative 1, just in case you're not sure where these answers are coming from. Alright, so those are easy enough, combining like terms. Alright, the next one says to multiply. A and B together means multiply, so that means you're going to be foiling. So 3 plus 4I and 6 minus I, when you FOIL them, that means you can do the box. And a lot of you skip this on the homework, and you shouldn't have, because it's going to be on the test. Stop skipping stuff you don't know. Come in for help. So 3 times 6 is 18. 4 times 6 is 24 with an I. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3 with an I. And 4 times negative 1 is negative 4. And there are 2 I's, so that's I squared. Combine your like terms. So 24 and negative 3 is 21. So your answer is 18 plus 21I minus 4I squared. Remember, I squared is negative 1. So we have to change this piece to negative 4 times negative 1, which is 4. So you're left with 18 plus 21I plus 4. Combine your like terms, and this is your final answer. So make sure you pay attention to each step. Alright, the next one is division. You know with division you're not allowed to have i's in the denominator, so you multiply by the conjugate. And the conjugate is always the opposite I in the denominator. So you're going to wind up having 2 boxes here. First box is for the numerator. So 3 times 6 is 18. 4 times 6 is 24. 3 times 1 is 3. And 4 times 1 is 4 with an I squared. Combine your like terms. 24 and 3 is 27. So for the numerator we have 18 plus 27I plus 4I squared. Remember, I squared is negative 1. So this whole thing here has to equal negative 4. Combine your like terms and you get 14 plus 27I. That is just for the numerator. So now you need another box for the denominator. So we have 6 times 6 is 36. 6 times negative 1 is negative 6 with an I. 6 times 1 is 6 with an I. And 1 times negative 1 is negative 1 with an I squared. So now you combine your like terms. And negative 6 plus 6 winds up canceling out. So you're left with 36 minus I squared. Remember, I squared is negative 1. So you have to change this to a plus 1. So 36 plus 1 is 37. So now that you have your numerator and your denominator, your final answer for this question is 14 plus 27i all over 37. Notice we have no i's in the denominator. Only thing is you have to see if you can reduce, and you can't. There's nothing in 37 that will go into 14 and 27. Alright, so ponder on this for a minute. Alright, the last section is called completing the square. When you complete the square, suppose this is your trinomial. You want your trinomial. Your trinomial here is going to be, so basically what will happen here is you'll have the same numbers being multiplied that can be added. Okay, so if I have a number and I add them, I'll get it here. And then if I have a number times a number, I'll get it here. So these two numbers would be the same. So now the easiest thing to do to complete the square is one very simple formula that won't be given to you, but it's super easy. It's b divided by 2 squared. And the reason why it's b divided by 2 squared is, think about it. If these two numbers have to be the same, right? If I divide it by 2, I just get n by itself. And when I get n by itself, I square it to get this one. So basically that's what we're doing here. So you're going to take your 4, divide it by 2, and then square it. So this answer is going to be 4. If you wanted to test it, you could see, okay, well 2 times 2 is the same as 2 plus 2. Okay, that works. So now let's try the next one. 6 divided by 2 squared is 3 squared, which is 9. So 9 goes here. Let's see if that works. Well, I know 3 times 3 is 9, and 3 plus 3 is 6. That works. It's going to be the same exact number. Alright, last one. Negative 16 divided by 2 squared. That's negative 8. Notice the parentheses. Squared gives me positive, oops, positive 64. Well, let's see if that works. 8 times 8 is 64, but 8 plus 8 is not 16. That's okay, because all I have to do is throw in negatives, and it still works. Alright, there is one multiple choice question like this on your test and one multiple choice question like this on your final. That's why we teach it to you like this so quick. Alright, that ends the video part 2. So please look out for the secret message on Edline. And I really want you guys to pass. So good luck. And hopefully you guys will do well. Alright.